to rock and roll? Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Tom Content, Citizens Utility Board. Welcome back to CUB Tracks podcast. As always, like and subscribe. We are here at the wrapping up of the NASUCA annual meeting, the National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates, which CUB is a member. My guest is Chris Ayers, who is with the North Carolina Consumer Advocate. Has a different name, though. What is it?
We're the North Carolina Utilities Commission Public Staff.
Public Staff. And so I wanted you to come on CUB Tracks today for a couple of reasons. One is you're president of NASUCA right now, so you're the leadership role in our organization, so I want to ask you about that. But then also our offices are not exactly alike. So we're CUB, nonpartisan, nonprofit, 6 employees. Can you talk about your office?
Sure. North Carolina Public Staff is, when we're fully staffed, at 82 people. Right now we've got about 67 on staff. But we are nonpartisan, and we are an independent agency within state government, so we are independent from our commission. But we are a collection of engineers, accountants, financial analysts, economists, lawyers, just a great group of people that are tasked with investigating virtually everything that gets filed at our Utilities Commission.
So one of the smallest, not the smallest NASUCA member, and perhaps the largest, right? But
one of.
One of the largest. And you actually do some of the functions that our PSC does, is the way I understand it.
Yes. So in North Carolina, the public staff is responsible for doing the audit and investigation of rate cases and other cases that are filed filed with the commission. And so while our commission does not have a trial staff or an advocacy staff, all of that resides with the public staff in North Carolina.
Public staff. Yeah. And so NASUCA, we're just finishing up our annual meeting, first one back in person for several years. What are some of your reflections on what we did at the meeting, what we learned?
Sure. It was a great meeting. It was great to see folks back in person. There's been a lot of turnover within the consumer advocate ranks over the last couple of years. I think we're up to around 12 or 13 new heads of offices, really since COVID began. A lot of retirements, a lot of folks moved on, career choices. Some, there were just political changes back in the states, and so folks moved on for those reasons. So a lot of new faces. And so getting folks together in a room like this to just sit around the table and talk about issues it's nice. You cannot replicate that in-person discussion. We had great sessions, 2 days of open sessions, good sessions. We started off actually on Sunday, our third day, and had an equity panel. It was an internal discussion, just NASUCA members only, and really talked about what equity means across various states, the different statutes that we have to grapple with when we're talking about that subject. Had a lot of other great panels, touched on natural gas, touched on the IIJA, the IRA. I had a couple of FERC commissioners come speak with us. Commissioner Christie, Commissioner Phillips joined us as well. So just a lot of good discussion, and the themes remain the same from the meetings that we've had recently, which is
I was going to say affordability. We had passed that equity and affordability resolution,
that's right,
which is going to be helpful, I think, for all the states because you had a diversity of states at passing that. But yeah, talk about some of the big things of affordability and what your perspective is on affordability right now.
Right, affordability is, it's more critical now than ever before. And one of the struggles that even consumer advocates have is defining exactly what affordability is. Some folks cannot afford their utility bills just in terms of absolute cost. Others are having to make opportunity cost decisions with respect to how they pay the bill and how they don't. And we're in a period of increasing price pressure, and that's not going to change anytime soon, I don't think. And so part of our discussion is how do you manage those costs on the front end? And then how do you manage the impact to customers on the back end? So we had a lot of discussion there. I can't say that we found the silver bullet that solves it all, but part of it is awareness and understanding the extent of the problem, and then from there, talking about and developing ways to mitigate the problem. And so there was good discussion there.
Yeah, and we're looking for ways to get our utilities to really focus on that and focus on that and focus on that every time,
right.
And not just some of the time, because it's so critical. And trying to even talk about in our rate cases, talk about should your ROE be based on things you're doing for the customers in terms of areas of customer service, customer accountability, affordability, so big stuff.
Yeah.
And then what are you doing as the NASUCA president? Because you've been going around the country even more. Ellen Katz, who's now at FERC, was your predecessor. She's leading the Office of Public Participation at FERC, but she started going around the country, and you've been doing that a lot.
Well, actually, there were two predecessors in between me and her.
Oh, okay.
We've even had a lot of turnover in the leadership
There you
ranks
go.
with Jackie Roberts from West Virginia and Mark Schuling in Iowa.
Iowa, that's right.
That's again, that's just a flavor of the turnover that we've had, and with retirements and departures for other opportunities. But with respect to my role as NASUCA president, I, as well as the executive director, David Springy, we try and take the NASUCA message, which is expressed through resolutions and other actions that we take, to the various forums and throughout the country. So you will see us at NARUC. We had a number of great panelists go over and speak at the NARUC sessions that were concurrent with NASUCA this time. But what we're trying to do is get the concerns and the message of the consumer advocates out there. And it's not just as simple as, hey, we're really concerned about cost. It's a lot more than that. I mean, we're talking about the energy transition. Transmission is a very big part of that, but transmission affects different jurisdictions differently. So understanding that and conveying the wide spectrum of consumer advocate views. One thing, that I always like to point out is we have a vast diversity of views within NASUCA. Very diverse organization.
Right, we got states with RTOs, states
Yes.
without RTOs.
That's right.
We've got states that are vertically integrated, states with retail choice.
That's right. And our enabling statutes, I mean, each state's different. And so some are very broad, some are very narrow, and then everyone else is sort of in between. And so when I go, I try to say, all right, I want to give you a flavor of what consumer advocates are dealing with right now. One end of the spectrum to the other. These are the issues that we see. These are the issues that we are trying to mitigate. These are our ideas and things that you ought to be talking about and thinking about as regulators, as industry, as trade groups, and so forth. It's important for us to put our issues out on the table and be part of that discussion. Be in the room, be at the table, and just bring what we're seeing in the trenches to bear in really our national and regional conversations.
And what do you see as the big issue for 2023 for the consumer advocates around the country?
Am I limited to one?
Not necessarily.
So I think affordability, obviously, as we continue to navigate the inflationary environment and what would appear to be perhaps an oncoming recession. Right. I mean, that's always top of mind for any consumer advocates. Figuring out how we implement the IIJA, the IRA, there's a lot of money, a lot of opportunity out there, and using that to help defray some of the costs of the energy transition,
right,
I think is going to be top of mind. I'll also say that the transmission issue, which it's so important that FERC and NARUC have a joint task force, which has never been done before, to talk about these issues and how they navigate. So those are three of the major ones, or at least the ones that keep showing up on my on my radar.
And do you think consumer advocates have enough of a voice in the transmission discussion?
I'd say probably no, and part of it is just the lack of technical expertise that we have. It is difficult to find consultants out there. It's very difficult to find internal engineers that'll come work internally on these topics. It's a really weighty, difficult subject, and particularly a lot of our offices are between 5 and 10 people, and the likelihood of you getting a transmission expert as one of those 10 people is pretty slim. So but we're working on that. There are various groups that we are that we visit with. I know some of our offices have had the ability to retain some consultants or looking for consultants to make sure that we have a role in that discussion. And then there's DOE. We have been recipients of technical assistance over the years, and DOE provides a number of trainings for consumer advocates in our community. And so we're leveraging all of that we can to stay up to speed on the transmission issues.
Right, and FERC NASUCA submitted comments at FERC this year on transmission issues, and again, it shows how broad-based those issues, our coalition is, for us to have comprehensive comments on something that's that complicated and affects different regions in different ways. One issue that I was on a panel this week on was the right of first refusal issue, and NASUCA was strong on that. We support competitive bidding as an organization for these high voltage power lines, billions of dollars, tens and tens of billions of dollars that's going to be spent. We know it's going to be $10 billion just in our region, and a couple billion right in Wisconsin, and we think that's a really pivotal issue going forward.
Right.
And if you do you think that what's the biggest thing that where the consumer voice is needed? The kind of what forum where do you think we're most needed at? And because you've actually tried to get us represented in some new spots.
Mm-hmm. So where it's most needed, I think NARUC is the obvious choice, and we have very good relationships with NARUC. You saw the number of consumer advocates that were on panels here in New Orleans. NARUC consistently calls. I spoke to their accounting subcommittee at their conference in Ohio just a few weeks ago. So there's lots of opportunity there because NARUC is sort of the great convener. You've got industry, you've got trade groups, you've got activists, a lot of groups, and the
technically NARUC is just the commissions, right? The regulators.
In terms of membership,
but everybody shows up.
Everybody shows up, including the consumer advocates, and so that's a place. And NARUC has been very willing to engage with NASUCA and support us and make sure that our voice is at the table. So that's the big one. But then, going out and just with the various industry groups and trade groups, making sure that we have an appearance there. And that folks, if we're not at the table, folks are like, well, hold on, where's the consumer advocate? And bring us to the conversation so we can bring our expertise, our issues to bear, and help figure out the solution. It's not just about identifying the problem; it's also about identifying the solution.
Yeah, well, and that's what you found is if you're not on the table, you could be on the menu. So you got to be there. Well, Chris, thanks for coming out and joining us and giving us a good recap.
Sure, more than happy to. This is my first podcast, so that's exciting.
There you go. Now you can say you've added that, check that off the list. You've done that, and we'll be back with Corey for another edition of CUB Track soon.